Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Back in the day, when I graduated from high school and was approaching age 18, I was faced with the same thing that all young men of my age were facing: what to do about military service. Back in those days, we had a draft, and if you weren't deferred in some way from this draft, then you needed to figure out a way to get into the Army, Air Force, or the Navy, or the Army would come and get you, and you'd be an Army grunt. And nobody really wanted that. So I'm thinking of, well, I really need a deferment. How can I be deferred? Well, one of the ways you could be deferred in those days was if you were married. Well, not only was I not married, I didn't even have a girlfriend. And I'm kind of reminded of the old adage in the Army with the sergeant talking to the new recruit saying, if the Army wanted you to have a wife, it would have issued you one. So I took the other way out for deferment, and that was to go to college, which actually I planned all along. I didn't really think much about the service anymore as I went into college, but my first day at Penn State, I was told it was mandatory to be either an Army or Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC. So I chose the Air Force, not wanting to deal with the Army. And after 2 years of mandatory ROTC in the Air Force and having the opportunity to go for years 3 and 4 and get a commission, I said, no way do I want to have anything to do with this Mickey Mouse outfit. With all due respect to any Air Force people in the room. So I said, okay, I don't have to worry about it. So I'm through with the Air Force and crossed that one off. So I went through and I got my bachelor's degree, and I actually graduated a little early, so I was able to continue my particular vocation in meteorology, working for the then Weather Bureau in North Carolina. And so I had about a 6-month period, and I had been accepted to grad school the following September. So I figured, no problem. Well, about halfway through that 6 months in North Carolina, I received this letter which started out, greeting. No S at the end, just greeting. You have been selected to go to your draft physical. Show up at a certain date, a certain time, a certain place, and we'll see if you're fit to be in the Army. Oh, I was shaken at that point in time. But I showed up at that time, and at the time there was maybe 30 or 40 of us that had to get on this bus, and before I did, the drill sergeant came up to me, scowling, with a piece of paper in his hand, and said, here, you are the leader. I'm the leader? You have been appointed as leader. Your job is to make sure that all these people get on the bus, and they stay on the bus, and when they get to where they're supposed to be, they stay where they're supposed to be, and at the end they get on the bus, and we get them all back in one piece. That was my job as a leader. I thought, wow, I'm a leader. Army, where leaders are made. Somehow I survived that. And they didn't throw me out of the Army for the day, but let me tell you, that was one of the worst days of my life. The draft physical is no picnic, believe me. And the people that I had to deal with weren't exactly, shall we say, the same intellectual capacity that I felt that I was at. So it was a very difficult day. So I went back to graduate school, I got the deferment back again, and I had 2 years at Penn State in graduate school working on a thesis that literally took all of those 2 years. So the second year, I realized, well, okay, I'm going to have to make a decision. Once again, I've given up on the Air Force already, I've given up on the Army, but just to be safe, I applied for an officer candidate position in both the Air Force and the Navy as a meteorologist. Now the difference in the two is that the Air Force never really came looking for me. So I applied with no real background. But the Navy, on the other hand, as soon as I'd gotten my bachelor's degree, had sent me a letter right out of college and said, you really ought to join the Naval Weather Service because we can make you a commissioned officer and be a weatherman, and then you can go to any one of these stations. And I said, gee, that sounded good. And so I said, I'll just file this for future reference, and forgot about the letter. So about the second year of graduate work, I applied to both the Air Force, even with my previous experience with Air Force ROTC, and the Navy. And as these things go, you don't hear anything for months. Maybe you get a letter asking for some more information, but you really don't hear anything, and it's getting to be March. I think, oh my God, I haven't heard from either of these people, and I don't want to go into the Army. They're going to send me to Vietnam. So fortunately, one day in March of that year, as I opened my mail, there was a letter from the Air Force. And it said, "Congratulations, Mr. Thormeyer, you have been selected for Officer Training School as a meteorologist. Report in 3 weeks to Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas, and we'll make an Air Force officer out of you." And I'm thinking, oh my God, San Antonio in the summer? I don't think so. Well, what if I turn this down and the Navy doesn't accept me? What am I going to do? I'm going to have to either accept it and not finish my graduate degree and hope they send me back later, or continue and hope the Navy comes through. So I really was torn over that for all of about 3 days, because about 3 days later I got a letter from the Navy. And the letter said, "Congratulations, Mr. Thormeyer, you've been accepted for Officer Candidate School at Newport, Rhode Island. Finish your thesis, finish your work, we'll see you in September in Newport." That was an easy decision to make. And I never regretted it, although I really never expected to stay in the Navy more than the required 3 years. Most of you know it didn't turn out quite that way. And we're going to find out a little more about what happened to me in the Navy in my next speech. But for now, if you have to choose between Army, Navy, and Air Force, it's pretty clear that Navy was the way to go, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially a man whose idiosyncrasy in his speech is as simple as the sandwich he has at every meal. Carl, you began this speech back in the day, an opening delivered with enthusiasm, energy. You brought us right in. I couldn't wait to hear what was going to be back in the day that we hadn't seen, because we knew it was back here, coming at us. It was Mickey Mouse outfits all the way. If the Army wanted you to have a wife, they would issue you one. Of course they would. So we got right from the beginning that with Carl's 4th time at Get to the Point, he got right to the point. So I will get to the point as well. He covered his Army, no. Air Force, maybe. Really wanted the Navy. He really didn't want to serve, I'm assuming, in Vietnam. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. So that way, he is looking at a career post. So we get to know from what Carl is telling us and not telling us that he is using his wits, his intellect, his great ideas to achieve something wonderful that is another teaching tool for all of us. You want something, you figure out how to get there, and you do it. He tells us that the Air Force never came looking, but he went looking there as a backup. He did the Navy, they commissioned him, it's wonderful. He says, and almost a negative, it's getting to be March, while da-da-da. Well, it's getting to be March might be something that is an inefficient speaking tool. However, in writing, that would be solid. In speaking, it certainly took us where we wanted to be, because he did this conversation. He took us on a story of his life. He wasn't hitting us with it. He was telling us in a way that I was captivated, interested. Carl, it was absolutely wonderful. You used your hand gestures. I was taken in with it. The only thing I really had to nitpick to find it, to go, what is wrong with this, because I couldn't find much, I would like to see you move it around and talk it to us a little bit more with your feet, and that would be the only thing I can think with this absolutely exemplary speech. Thank you, Pam.